thank you all for coming to this talk today. I'm really excited to bring some fresh ideas to you. We're sort of going to treat this like a conversation. I know it's going to be hard doing this virtual, but we'll do the best we can. And I'm super open to questions afterwards, and I would love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. So the title of this talk is Representation Will Not Save Us. This is a statement that I've been grappling with for quite some time now. And I wanted to sort of give us an historical framework around where I'm entering this conversation around like media representation specifically for Black, trans, and queer bodies. But yeah, we'll talk more about that. So before we really get into it, wherever you're sitting, wherever you are, just take a moment to just please lower your eyes, release your jaw, think about relaxing your shoulders, really planting your feet into the ground. And on the count of 3, we're gonna take a collective deep breath in. 1, 2, 3. Once again, collective deep breath in and release. Last time, collective deep breath in and release. You can open your eyes. Thank you for going on that journey with me. Just want to bring us all into the space together energetically before we begin. Awesome, let's jump right into it. So this talk today is not going to be your average or your average grandfather's Black History Month talk. This is going to be very different. I am centering Black women and particularly Black trans bodies in this talk for a reason. There's a pressing need for this, and yeah, that will be the focus. So I wanted to open this talk with paying homage to none other than Kimberly Crenshaw. She is an American civil rights advocate. She's also a law professor, and she's the gorgeous person who coined the term intersectionality. And I know that this is a term that's been used pretty frequently in the past few years, but I wanted to sort of bring us all into the space together to give us a more coherent sense of what Kimberly Crenshaw actually means when she says intersectionality. So here's a quick definition. It is the study of the intersections between different systems of oppression and domination, including the privileges that accompany gender, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic class, religion, ability, sexual orientation, etc. So yes, so here there is the focus on the intersections of these different systems that are at play. And I think that is the hallmark of what Kimberly Crenshaw is trying to get at. I've noticed in a few academic spaces when intersectionality is used, it's sort of used as a checklist of things like, oh, as a white cishet man, I am blah, blah, blah. And yes, that's great, but I'm from my own research and from my own studies, I feel that Kimberly Crenshaw is really asking us to look deeper and to give a more complex understanding of these systems of domination and oppression and how they compound and collide in our identities. So yeah, I think focusing more on these systems rather than the individual bodies is key to this. Are we all good so far? We're good? Awesome. So here's another sort of infographic just to give us a sense of what intersectionality can look like. So here, these various systems of oppression, here we have racism, sexism, classism, heterosexism, ableism, and xenophobia. And also on the sides of the street, we have homophobia and transphobia. So just to give us an idea of how these sort of systems can can actually collide and compound our identities in public space. Awesome. And just to break down these quick terms, I know we use these terms a lot, but just to bring us all into the room together. So sex refers to the biological traits that society associates with being either male or female. Gender are the cultural meanings attached to being masculine and feminine, which influence personal identities. So for example, man, woman, transgender person, intersex person, genderqueer person, among others. And sexuality refers to sexual attraction, practices, and identity, which may or may not align with sex and gender. So one thing I've heard in other public health spaces is to think about the difference between sexuality and gender. It's like sexuality is who you go to bed with, and gender is who you go to bed as. So just to give us a little bit of a context for that. So again, understanding the nuances of sex, gender, and sexuality. And here's a quick definition for gender identity, which is slightly different. It refers to a person's innate, deeply felt, internal, and individual experience of gender, which may or may not correspond to the person's physiology or designated sex at birth. And I think this is really important to identify here with, again, this idea that it's your own innate, deeply felt experience of gender, and no one gets to decide that for you. So you have agency over your own body and your own experience and how you relate to your gender. Oh, okay, so part of the impetus to create this talk called Representation Will Not Save Us, I was thinking back to the historical moment that happened in 2014 when Laverne Cox graced the cover of Time magazine. And this was right around the time that Orange is the New Black, the series was popping off, and she was getting very famous for that. And yeah, I thought it was very, very important to note that in this Times article, the title, the transgender tipping point. And as a sort of cultural moment to think about Laverne Cox as this sort of figurehead for the trans movement, according to the media, right? How is this cultural moment being shaped, informed, and curated? Whose particular bodies are in the forefront of that? Who's doing the labor to really organize around this movement? What does this movement mean? Who is this movement for? So these are just questions that I have. But yeah, thinking about this transgender tipping point in 2014 with Laverne Cox, and also with Caitlyn Jenner with Vanity Fair, Call Me Caitlyn. So those two particular moments of trans visibility showing up in popular media. Yes, I think that's all great, but just to switch gears a little bit, I think we also have to look at the harsh realities of what this visibility means. Here is an infographic that is a trans murder monitoring section. And here it's kind of hard to read, but it says between January 2008 to September 2020, 3,664 murders of trans and gender diverse people were registered worldwide. And also it says that 97% of those killed globally were trans women. And 89% of those killed in the US were people of color. So yeah, there's a correlation that I'm trying to make here between what does it mean for those particular bodies to be visible in public space, but then also looking at the material consequences of that visibility and what that means, which is murder, right? Here's another On the left, it's kind of hard to read, but it also says October 2019 to September 2020, 350 murders of trans and gender diverse people were registered worldwide. And as you can see on this one on the right, 69% of these deaths have been among trans women of color, 46% affected Black trans women specifically. So yeah, there is a correlation between Black trans women, women of color, trans women of color, and this disproportionate rate of murders that are happening, but also we are seeing this uptick in popular media and visibility. So there's something about what this visibility means, and that's what I'm grappling with. So I don't really have an answer to the question, representation will not save us, like what will? I don't really know, but I'm really just using this moment to offer up information to have a more critical conversation about what this means, how the dangers of visibility can do something, and what does it do to our culture and to us living and moving about these spaces. Oh yes, so last week, the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, recently repealed this bill that I can't think of the exact name of the bill, but it was sort of coined as called the Walking While Trans bill. And it was a bill that dated back to the 70s that was used as like an anti-loitering statute to sort of, it was under the purpose of criminalizing loitering under prostitution. So what we saw with this bill was there was a disproportionate number of trans women, also women who are sex workers, being criminalized in the system from this bill. So last week, although it may be a small victory, is something for this moment. So now we can sort of use this as a sort of, I guess, a launching pad to further the conversation around decriminalizing sex work, decriminalizing trans bodies in public existing. Yeah, and how that could also lead to the defunding of these other larger structures of power, right? So this happened last week in New York. And this happened last week in Utah. There was this story that came out from this Montessori school in Ogden, Utah, where the school administrators tried to opt out of having a Black History Month curriculum for February. Yeah, and in the process of trying to opt out, the NAACP got in contact with them and squashed it. So like, to think that this is still happening in 2021, like, is ridiculous, right? But this is real, right? And I just wanted to share, like, even in the month of Black History, we still have this. Okay, awesome. I would be remiss to not mention the academic texts and books and other scholars that have influenced me and inspired me to come up with this talk. So here's just a short list of folks. This is one particular article that I love. It's called Redefining Representation, Black Women's Digital Media Production. And it's by Moya Bailey. And she is the scholar that coined the term misogynoir, which looks at the intersections of anti-Black racism and sexism, and how those two things combine and collide within the lived experiences of Black women. So the centering of Black women inside of that is important. So Misogynoir by Moya Bailey. This is C. Riley Snorton. And this is a lovely book called Black on Both Sides, A Racial History of Trans Identity. C. Riley Snorton is a huge inspiration for me as a trans scholar. And as someone grappling with inside of the fields of African American studies, gender studies, and queer theory. And I believe C. Riley Snorton is currently teaching at UChicago. This is Marquise Bay. They also have an article out called The Transness of Blackness and the Blackness of Transness that I love. Marquise Bay is an amazing scholar that looks at these sort of the intersectional erasures of Black trans folks inside of the academy. And also their book, Anarcho-Blackness, is amazing. You should check them out. Also some other seminal texts. Here is Black Sexual Politics, African Americans, Gender and the New Racism by Patricia Hill Collins. That is a lovely piece. I love this book. Also, Honeypot, which just came out recently by E. Patrick Johnson, Black Southern Women Who Love Women. So looking at the Black queer women's experience from the South. So I love that he's really looking at the intersections of geography, gender, and Blackness. And also Sweet Tea, which also focuses on Black gay men in the South. And this lovely book, which came out recently, Trapdoor, Transcultural Production and the Politics of Visibility. This is the piece that has really inspired me with imagining this talk. In this piece, it really talks about the sort of liminal spaces that Black trans bodies exhibit and occupy, not just in public space, but in film and media, and art and visual culture. But there's something about the power in that liminal space, that in-betweenness, that serves as a source of production. There's something about that. So the liminality of Black transness and the ways in which we get visibilized in popular culture. So yes, this is a fabulous book. You should check it out. Okay, let's just pause for a second. We're like halfway through. I'm just going to take another collective deep breath. So wherever you are, you don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to, but just checking back into yourself. And on the count of 3, we'll just take a collective deep breath. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. You can open your eyes if you're ready. So now, yes, I just spoke a lot at you and threw a lot of theories and concepts and terms at you. But I wanted to sort of situate myself inside of this larger conversation. And I am sharing a series of photos from this exhibit that I was a part of last month for this, for the Salt Lake Underground magazine. And this photo shoot was very important to me because, again, as you'll see from the images, I'm really grappling with these notions of anti-Black racism, gender and Blackness, and yeah, really using my body to sort of instrumentalize these ideas. So yeah, we'll go through them. I would love to hear your thoughts at the end if you have any. And yeah, just enjoy it. Okay. I just want to pause at this image for a second. There's something about the use of the American flag here and how it's functioning as this sort of thing to be consumed. So there's something about consumption here, eating the other, sort of to quote bell hooks. Yeah, I would also love to hear your thoughts. This is also quite powerful. There's something about suffocation, the sort of relinquishing of the senses. Yeah, flag as covering, as disguise. Yeah. And the use of the tutu here to sort of symbolize a gender dynamic. Yeah. This is just another image in black and white. And in this image, when I was working with a photographer, he wanted to capture the intensity of the murder of George Floyd in this. You know, with the cop when he had his foot on his head. So we wanted to reimagine that, but here, as you can see, it's with the fingertips. There's something about the clenching of the face, the reaching hand. Yeah. Oh, okay. And this last image, there's something about like the contortion of the body here. Sort of laying in repose, but also there's a sort of sensual stiffness. Yeah. Yeah, these images are doing the work of something. And I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on that more. Okay, awesome. So we're officially done with the presentation, but I wanted to, am I still sharing? Oh, sorry. Am I still sharing the screen, y'all?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How do I stop share?
Should be at the top of your screen. Like
oh, pause. Sorry. Okay.
Want me to stop sharing it for you?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Wonderful.
Okay. I do want to switch gears a little bit, and I have a tiny solo that I'm going to perform. It is it's by the poet Pat Parker, who is a Black lesbian feminist poet, and the name of the poem is entitled "Where Will You Be When They Come?"
Just a word of advice to everyone that's watching. If you turn it to speaker view, you can see the full, they're square, per se. You see the full square.
Okay, are we ready? All right.
Where will you be when they come? They will not come a mob rolling through the streets, but quickly and quietly move into our homes to remove the evil, the queerness, the faggotry from their midst. They will not come clothed in brown and swastikas or bearing chest heavy with gleaming crosses. The time and need for such ruses are over. They will come in business suits to buy your homes and bring bodies to fill your jobs. They will come in robes to rehabilitate and white coats to subjugate. And where will you be when they come? Where will we all be when they come? And they will come. They will come because we are defined as opposite, perverse, and we are perverse. Every time we watched the queer hustled in the streets and said nothing, it was an act of perversion. Every time we lied about the boyfriend or girlfriend at coffee break, it was an act of perversion. Every time we heard, I don't mind gays, but why must they be blatant, and said nothing, it was an act of perversion. Every time we let a lesbian mother lose her child and did not fill the courtrooms, it was an act of perversion. Every time we let straights make out in our bars while we couldn't touch because of the laws, it was an act of perversion. Every time we put on the proper clothes to go to a family wedding and left our lovers at home, it was an act of perversion. Every time we heard who I go to bed with is my personal choice, it's personal, not political, and said nothing, it was an act of perversion. Every time we let straight relatives bury our dead and push our lovers away, it was an act of perversion. And they will come for the perverts. And it won't matter if you're homosexual, not a faggot, lesbian, not a dyke, gay, not queer. It won't matter if you own your own business, have a good job, or an SSI. It won't matter if you're Black, Chicano, Native American, Asian, or white. It won't matter if you're from New York or Los Angeles, Galveston, or Sioux Falls. It won't matter if you're butch or femme, not into roles, monogamous, non-monogamous. It won't matter if you're Catholic, Baptist, atheist, Jewish, or MCC. They will come. They will come to the cities and to the land, to your front rooms and in your closets. They will come for the perverts. And where will you be when they come? Where will you be when they come? They will not come a mob rolling.
Thank you. Okay. Awesome. Thank you all for watching that. Yeah, that was awesome. Do we take questions?
Yes, let's take questions. Anyone, if you have a question, since we have a smaller group here, you can just unmute your mic, or if you don't feel comfortable speaking, you just put your question in the chat for me to read.
Hi, my name is Josie Dubois. I work at Huntsman Cancer Institute. And I actually just had a question about this poem because it reminded me of The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. If any of you are familiar with that. Are they, so I guess I'm asking you, which one was inspired from the other since they have the same sound, and maybe if you have more information about that.
Oh, that is a really good question. That piece is by Gil Scott Heron, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not quite sure who came first, but that is a really good question. I'm not sure. Because I feel like this poem by Pat Parker came out in the 70s, and Gil Scott Heron was more early 80s. I could be wrong, but
I'll look into it. Not to put you on the spot, it just gave me the same feelings of when I listened to that. It came up on my Spotify playlist the other day, and a lot of those emotions resonated with your performance. So thank you. It was very interesting to see it. I come from a performing arts administration background, and so seeing performances always makes me feel really excited and moved. So thank you. And I really like the choice that you had with kind of having your back to to the audience throughout, which shows, I think, a lot of complexities of like not being seen, but also having to turn away from things. So I'm gonna continue to think
Yes.
about that. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Anyone else? Feel free to just unmute your mic. Actually, we have a question in the chat. Can you talk more about the relationship between your movement and your activism?
Yes. I was thinking about this the other day too. Like what is my inspiration? Like why do I keep coming back to dance? Like why? Like and I feel like dance is, well, in a lot of ways it saved my life. Dance offered an entry point for me to explore my queerness and my gender in ways that I didn't feel super comfortable in, or I didn't really have an outlet outside of dance and art making to do that. So in a way, it saved my life in that aspect. I mean, the personal is political, right? I can't really separate my activism from my art making because they're so interlaced, and they're always commingling. Even like the ways in which I create pieces, it's usually coming from either a theoretical or some sort of socio-political standpoint. And that is how that is how I make my art. I know there are other folks who don't work like that, but I don't really know how else to. Yeah, they're interlocking for me. Cool.
Hi, this is Crystal. I'm sorry I have my camera off. It's a little crazy here right now, but thank you so much for that performance and for just kind of centering, reminding us especially of the disproportionate effects of violence on trans persons. I really appreciated that. Something that I feel like I am always struggling and questioning in my scholarship and in the classes I teach are the limits of representation. Hence, I was really interested in this talk, but it seems as if because so many marginalized people are cultural workers in some sense or form, or they find solace in art making, which leads to representation, as you said. I mean, it almost seems like, I guess I keep trying to figure out like, what else do we have? Like, is it just, solidarity in relationships? Is it kind of rethinking the domestic? Is it, some type of extension of social activism? Because, representation has been such a powerful way to oppress people. Right. It almost seems like to leave that field is, I don't know, it's a resignation that I don't know that like the culture is ready for, and not just because, the battle's still waging in representation, as we can see, but also because so many of us are artists. Yes. And that's a primary language for people. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So I don't know if you have you said at the beginning you didn't have an answer, but I guess I just wanted to like get the conversation out there, particularly as someone who identifies as a performer and an artist. I mean, representation in some way is your life and bread and butter.
Right. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Crystal. That's amazing. And yeah, you're right. These are the waters that we swim in, right? With art and symbolism and illusion and representation, like these. Yeah, I hear you in the limitations of representation, but I also hear you in the hesitation to leave that, right? Like there's something about representation that is important. I think there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. I just wish that it wasn't off of our backs. Our meaning like Black women, Black trans women, women and femmes, Black folks. Yeah, if there's a way that we can sort of refashion or reimagine the ways in which we do representation, right? Like what work does it do? What sort of like producibility does it have? How is it productive in these spaces? I think if we can sort of refashion that question to sort of think about it like that, yeah, what work does it do? I think that'll get us to a different place. Does that help answer a little bit?
It does. And also what you shared about visibility, which I feel like we're still in the age of visibility in terms of representation, and
Right.
to an extent have not been able to move past that. Like people are just getting their stories out. So it's like once out, we have this range of stories, then it's like, what's next?
Right.
So
yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Yaya. As always, like completely inspired by what it is that you share with the rest of us and with this community, especially in Utah, where there just is not enough of this. I appreciate that, you know, representation will not save us, but it can still feel like a breath of fresh air, even in moments like this. So I'm really grateful for you sharing that with us. And, you know, I have a question sort of looking towards the future. I really like some of the things I took from the combination of your dance juxtaposed with this poetry, and then framing the conversation initially in this concept of intersectionality is a real challenge that, like, if you operate, which you do because you exist in this world, if any of us operates in a system of oppression, we're inherently, through our own intersecting identities or in the relationships we have with other people's intersecting identities, we're tied into other people's struggles. You know, I heard a lot of that in the poem as sort of like, you're not absolved of this because you are one type of this rather than the other. Like it reminded me a lot of Casey Gerald, the author of There Will Be No Miracles Here, how he really talks about, like, you know, if people can still call me a nigger, if people can still call me a faggot, then like it doesn't matter if I have like prestige from like Ivy League degrees. Like I'm committed to the work of liberation of others. This is like all very heady, but where I'm going is, what do you hope to do when we can share space again in performance halls? Like, what do you hope to do with a stage and an audience who is no longer virtual? And I'm wondering if there's any space in there for like some Jersey club or some like New Orleans bounce in a way that's like, this is, you know, as a Newark baby, of like, this isn't just all about like, you know, really formalized forms of dance, but like, how do we not just represent, but really appreciate like every aspect of our culture in a way that can be, you know, held up in these like prestigious places? Like, how do you get the booty and the twerk on stage, or will you? A lot of questions in there, but again, thank you.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your openness and transparency and vulnerability. I'm so grateful. Wow, that is such a lovely question. Where do I start? Right before I moved back to Salt Lake City, it's like right before the pandemic, I was living in Philly, finishing up this, it's called Headlong Performance Institute. It's a semester-long research program that trains working artists in the field of not just dance, but art, visual culture, all those things. And it just provides you a space to create an evening length piece. And during that program, I created a piece called Woman House that took place inside of a house, inside of an apartment that I was living in while doing the program. And in that particular piece, I was pulling from Audre Lorde. the master's tools will not save the master's house. Yeah, really pulling from that. Each space or each room in the house had a different, a sort of a different energetic quality. Like in the bedroom scene, it was like very tense, and the bathroom scene was very sensual. Yeah, so just thinking about the sort of intimacies or grappling with notions of domesticity and what does it mean for my Black queer trans body to be existing in this house, in this space, right? And this was during a time when I had just come out of dealing with a very fucked up situation. Like I was dealing with precarious housing, homelessness. Yeah, so this idea of home space was really important for this piece. So I think moving forward, I would love to continue doing more site-specific, more intimate works similar to that. Yeah, looking back on it, it was kind of like a COVID cautious piece. Like we capped it at 10 folks at a time. We did rounds. Yeah, there's something about the intimacy of these pieces that really, they really resonate with me. And you know, I didn't discover Black feminism until like sophomore year of college, right? But when I did, that changed everything for me. And the ways in which it shows up in my work and in the sonic environment that I'm creating in the piece, I'm sort of paying homage to this lineage of Black women in that way. Yeah. Awesome. I hope that answers.
Yeah, I look forward to these pieces in the future. Thanks so much.
Yes, big shout outs to Jersey Club too, and twerking, definitely. We yes, it is a part of our culture.
Is there anyone else?
Hey,
oh yeah.
Yaya. This is Kristen Ferguson. We met like 10 years ago on your study abroad trip.
Oh my God, Kristen. Yo, how are you, baby?
I'm good, I'm good. So yeah, I saw this online and I came, but I think that's around the time where you found Black feminism. It was like a queer theory trip in Europe.
Yes.
And it's just, I don't have a question, but it's so neat for me to see you now 10 years later and this journey you've gone on and how like deep in it you are is like really, really beautiful. And so I'm very grateful to have this opportunity, but thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Kristen. I mean so much. Oh, wow.
Any other questions or comments?
I think I just wanted to add, like with that particular solo, it felt yeah, the use of the back was really there's something quite generative about the back for me, because it is such a space that is quite hidden a lot. To sort of see the sort of concealing and revealing, unveiling of the back as a sort of sensual site or as a site of something. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's just like speaking to me right now as I was doing it.
All right. If there's not any more questions, I do want to say thank you all for attending. Yaya, you are amazing. Thank you so much. Really, thank you so much for attending and really just, providing a message to all of us here today. And again, we'll be in contact. But with that, I hope everyone enjoyed this presentation. If you have any more questions, feel free to email myself and I can email Yaya.
Awesome. Thank you guys.